Okay, we're live. Hi, Kurt.
Hello.
How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing very well. How about yourself?
Really good, thank you. I'm very excited to have you here today. I feel like I'm meeting with a reality modeling superstar.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate that.
Because you have so much experience and all that. But before we get to introducing yourself,
Mhm.
I just want to mention that today is the first of a live series that we're going to do, Curtis and myself, together in LinkedIn Live. So we'll be here every 3 4 weeks. And yeah, we'll be just showcasing out of the box reality modeling projects. So really cool projects and interesting, I don't know, like use cases and things like that. So you are very welcome to share any feedback or any ideas or any questions. I'll be checking LinkedIn and following up on your questions. So feel free to comment anytime. And with that, Kurt, I think that it will be good to introduce yourself, because I know that some people that are joining today know you, but because it's the first one with you, I would like to just that everyone knows a little bit more about you.
Yes, I'm Kurt Rasmussen. I'm with Bentley Systems. I've been with Bentley, I'd say 8 or 9 years, close to 10. Uh, my career started as a CAD manager for a photogrammetry company. So I've been involved in the civil world, and I did that for about 7 years. And then I moved over to an engineering firm where I was a CAD manager for about 12 years. And I focused mostly in LiDAR scanning. So my career started in photogrammetry, then moved into
Mhm,
LiDAR scanning. And now with Bentley, I focus on both. We merge photogrammetry as well as LiDAR to make 3D reality models.
mhm. That's very cool. Okay. So like tell me more about what you're gonna present today. Like so these started actually, let me just we were having a chat a few weeks ago, and we were just talking about reality modeling stuff, and then somehow you started showing me like really amazing projects, and I was like, of course we need to show this. And so this is how it started. And today, like I found it really interesting that we can, like, I even myself associate reality modeling to because that's how I was educated. Actually, like you need really good data. Actually, we had a saying in my first job as an engineer in Gatewing. We had this saying of garbage in, garbage out. So the data
Yep.
acquisition and the quality of the data was always like a big thing. So when you were saying that you created this data for instructional purposes, obviously because it's Google Earth, but like I found it really interesting. Like, okay, so what is this? How do you manage to use available sources which normally are very low quality level into an engineering ready 3D mesh? Well, maybe not engineering ready, but kind of
Right.
like a ready.
We're taking steps.
Mm,
Yeah, so usually when you start a project, you start with, especially preliminary when you're bidding on jobs and things, you're looking to get um, as much information that you can at your fingertips. So you'll look at free LiDAR data, ortho photos, Google Earth. People go to Street View of Google Earth. They look at Microsoft and Bing Maps and all the options out there. And I myself look at all that myself. To me, it's very important to hit the ground running, kind of get started, get your hands on things, get it tangible, get your site out there. So in the past, we always started with ortho photos. It's a great way to see your site. And then when Google Earth came out with street level views and Bing has street level views, we're able to see things at different times and different angles and start to,
mhm,
put your mindset on of what the site looks like. Well, lately I've been dealing with a lot of drone pilots, and um, whether it's drone piloting, when at the beginning of it, when you're trying to learn, if you don't have flight planning software, because photogrammetry requires at least a 60% overlap. In the
mhm,
digital world, I lean more towards 75 to 85, just because if you have a glitch where for some reason the photo doesn't trigger, or if it's blurry, if it's trying to focus, automatic focus, and it doesn't come out right, if you lose one photo, you're still going to have at least your 60% overlap.
mhm,
Um, so I find that when we talk about out of the box, I learned how to use some of this software to um, kind of think differently about how we do things. And one thing when I'm trying to help somebody fly a drone, It's a little hard if I'm not there. It's also a little hard if they don't have a drone or a sight of where they're flying to.
Yep.
So that's really when I started thinking this way of how to show somebody how to take drone photography without getting in the drone and flying and showing them all that detail part of it.
And,
So very
and
preliminary.
And also, can I say, I think I find it more and more, well, not challenging. I don't know how to say this, but it's not only drone operators anymore and photogrammetrists that are doing this reality modeling. So we find a very wide variety of people doing and utilizing reality modeling nowadays. So like we can't expect everyone to be using the same means and to have the same background. So this is also one of the reasons why I find this really interesting, because we're opening up this photogrammetry to everyone.
Yes, even the video game world. I've noticed Google offers sources to create scenes for their video games. So there's a lot of stuff out there. We don't need to recreate the wheel. The world's been here and it's been mapped by everybody. In future episodes, I'll talk about some other ways that I can create some 3D models without leaving my couch and kind of just relying on other people to get my data for me. But
That's
today,
brilliant.
I'd like to start out with a sample model. If we want to share my screen.
Yep. Let me just quickly check. Yep, that should be coming in now.
Okay, so this is a fly-through of a college. So I was going out to do a keynote and talking about flying drones and things like that. And
sorry, Chris, just give me 1 sec. I don't think it's loading yet. I can't see your, but I think it should be on the stream. So just give it maybe a few seconds to load.
Okay, this runs for a bit. So this was Rio Hondo College. I was, like I said, doing a presentation there and teaching context capture and photogrammetry, and we get into flying drones. My job is not teaching people how to fly drones. So even though I do have my own drone here, I use it for my own use.
What drone do you have, if I can ask?
It's the Phantom 4 Pro.
Okay, cool.
Very common. I'll tell you, I love it. It's really a great drone. But I depending on what you're doing, then you get into different sensors that you need to, or different payloads that you're carrying. So that thing has a stock photo and pretty standard stuff. So people do need to upgrade.
Okay. So
this is a site that I did, and really I wanted to show this campus, the site. And when I was showing this to some students, they were very amazed with it. And I know some of the teachers were asking if I had permission to fly my drone there and when I did it and how did I do it and all these things. So I believe this is still playing in the video on your end, and you'll see that it's switching between the 3D model. Well, it is a 3D model, but sometimes I turn the texture off, and the texture is what gives it that color. So kind of the image draped across the mesh. That's where you really see the value of the mesh, because in 3D it looks like a photo, but in reality, it is a 3D model. So what I'm moving on to here, and I'm hoping it's catching up, is the still photography. So I'm showing nadir images, or nadir. This is when you're perpendicular to the ground, and we see there, I have just a handful of them. And you see when I cycle through them that it looks like a slow playing movie. It's kind of just jerky. I kind of describe when I used to draw the stick figure in the corner of my biology book and then flip the pages to get the running man going. That's
a really good
same thing. When a user sends me their video, their pictures, that's when I'm hitting my arrow. It should be like a jerky picture, like I'm moving around. If you're doing it by foot, I say take a picture, take a couple steps, take a picture. If you're doing it by drone, you'll see here that I have an oblique orbit as well. So I had just like 10, 12 photos of nadir, and then I had some obliques in there, which I did just a quick circle around. Now, as people asked, how did you do this, at the campus? Well, the truth is I got in about 10 o'clock at night. So there definitely was no way that I was going to be flying it. My presentation was the next morning. So I sat in my hotel room and I made this. It's a great way to present to people how to fly a drone, how to take their pictures, how to do their overlaps. So we saw here, I'm going through the photos. You see the still pictures of how I was taking them. I'm moving on to context capture where they're brought in. And you can see when I pick on it, It's going to select the photo. I could see the
Mm-hmm.
photo. First, I'm selecting the nadir images, and then you'll see I have my oblique orbit that goes around. Now, this batch, I only did about 60 photos.
Mm-hmm.
So this whole process from beginning to end is under 10 minutes.
Okay, six
Um,
photos under 10 minutes.
60
Sorry, there was
photos.
a question. 60 photos under
Yeah.
10 minutes. Yeah, okay,
This
perfect.
this one that you're looking at is 61 photos, I believe. And just a handful of nadir, a handful of obliques. It was for time, speed. I want to show the concept of the difference between a nadir image and an oblique image, and also how to do the overlaps, which I'd like to show everybody live of how that's done.
Yeah, please do so. Sorry, I'm just keeping up with the messages here because we have a lot of comments coming in.
Yes.
Keep them coming. That's is really fun. So we had the question about how many pictures was captured and how long to process. We said 60 and under 10 minutes for the stitching.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah, this is not beautiful. It's not like you're flying this site, and this site I would probably have 400 or 500 photos, depending on the camera and different things like that, what resolution we're looking to get. But um, if you're able to see my screen, we have Google Earth up here, and I know there's a delay, so I'll try to be gentle with this. There's some key things that I do. Okay, so some tricks of the trade. I use a product called Snagit. It's by TechSmith. They also make Camtasia video software, which that's what I use to create my videos. The reason why I'm pointing this out, you can use any product that you want for screen capture. Windows has a product in there called Snipping Tool. You could use that. But I prefer this option because I can predefine some things. So I have my region in here, so I can predefine my region. First thing I want to do is clean up my Google Earth here. So as much as I could just have it region in this area, I want to remove some of the things. Down here, we see I have our elevation. Of course, we want to always leave that Google Earth logo there. That is their branding, and this is their photography. So when we come through here, if I look at my tools up at the top, my view toolbars, I want to turn them off to get rid of that toolbar on the side. I want to get rid of this and my status bar at the bottom. So I'll give this a little bit of time to catch up. But what we see here is I've cleaned up my screen, and now I could actually clean it up a little more. This is a little window secret. F11 will do a maximize view. It works with many products out there, Microsoft products, a lot of things that you're probably using. So F11 will give you a nice maximum view. So we see we're left here with just the menu bar at the very top, and everything else is cleaned up except for the Google Earth logo. What I do now at this point, this is a great way. I want to make sure that nadir. So this is, I'd be oblique if I'm at an angle, nadir this way. And I want to make sure north is up. So if you click on the N, that'll spin north straight up. Now I want to start at the top left of my project. So I'm just going to say that I'm going to start here. Now, one thing I do, whether it's doing it on my screen, doing it with a drone, or doing it with my phone, things like your phone, you can turn on a grid. So it chops it into 9 squares. That will give you you'll have 2 vertical squares in the middle, or 2 lines.
How do you turn on a grid on your
Um,
phone?
It's in the settings.
Okay.
So that is something I recommend if you're doing photogrammetry, because you want to make sure you get at least that 60% overlap. So if you take your screen and divide it into 3, so it'll put 2 lines, you'll be divided into 3. Let's say you're taking a picture of a scene and there's a tree, and you line it right up at one of the lines, you take your picture. Then when you move, you want that tree to be lined up at the next line. Take your picture, and then when you move, the tree would be right near the edge of your screen. You always want your scene to have 3 different vantage points of it. So if you have your tree, that tree better be seen in 3 photos. The middle photo should be right in the middle of it, and that's how we get good photogrammetry from it.
That's really good trick for mobile phone data capture. So
Yep.
I'm noting that down.
So the same concept I use with my screen. So if I took this screen and divided it into 3, what I did was I put a piece of tape on the top of my screen at one point. And what I do is, well, let me get back to Snagit. But the Snagit default settings, I have my region. So I preset that to my screen that I have set here. And then I have it automatically write out to a file. And here's where I can give it automatic settings. I want to make it a JPEG. And I also want to give it some naming. So here I gave it a prefix that says Google Earth arrow. This is where I was shooting around one of these arrows. This is a great way. I recommend this also with drone piloting. When you have your nadir photos, separate them from your obliques. And I use Windows just to rename. I select all my oblique photos. I right click, say rename, and say oblique 1, and then I'll name them oblique 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way down the list. Sometimes when you're changing batteries, you may end up with DJI 001, 02, 03, and then you go fly again, come back. Now you have another 1, 2, 3. So I always recommend you rename your photos, do them as soon as possible, so that you can keep track of your photos. But in this case, since I'm doing this as a training method, if I was flying nadir, I would say in here, Google Earth nadir. And I give it this nadir image. I tell it a starting number. So this is another good thing. Surveyors taught me this with control points and things. You have a range. You have 100, 200, 300. Start at these numbers, and it helps you organize. Same thing with this. We're doing aerial survey or Google Earth methods. You want to do the same thing. You want to keep it. So here I have my starting number at 400. So when I was trying to add some targets in here, I made one target 200, the other one was 300, and the other one was 400. And this way I had my photo range that if I quickly need to go through and find them, that helps. So you can add multiple things to automate that. So that being said, now how this capture works is you hit the print screen button. So all I have to do is hit my print screen button, and it actually highlights here. I just click, and it made that photo for me already. Now what I do is I have that mark on my screen 1/3 of the way over, and maybe you want to do 25% so that you have a 75% overlap. So if I cut my screen in quarters and I have my hand right up here by this roadway, I press and hold it down, and I slide over to the right just till it touches the edge of my screen. I then hit print screen, pick my view. It now makes that file again, and I'm ready to move on to the next picture. I move to that top area 1/4 of the way over, grab it, move it over to the right till I hit the edge of the screen, take my next photo. Now keep in mind, I'm all perpendicular to the ground. You are seeing the parallax in here because this is a 3D model. So as I move, you'll see that I'm seeing on the side. So this is different than using ortho photos. Ortho photos, you're not going to get the sides of your buildings. So as you see here, as I move over this way, I'm able to see the side of this building here. I'm sorry, I'll slow up a little bit because I realize there might be a delay.
It's okay. I think everyone is following.
Okay, so I can see the side of the building here. When I go directly over it, this is now like an ortho of the building. I'm not seeing any of the sides of it, but then as I move to the right of it, I now can see the right side of that building. So the same way the parallax works with our eyes, that's the same thing we're seeing here, that we're able to see that depth. So we're taking advantage of that. Yes.
We are, yeah. So that we have very good comments coming in. I had a question from, let me grab that. Where was it about laser scan? But maybe we can touch that later.
Yeah, I'm not going to get into laser scanning today, but I'm more than willing to answer a question at the end.
Okay, that's perfect. So I'll keep it for the end.
Yeah, that's great. So then I would go through this if an area of concern, or whatever, we're using this for training. So we just want to show somebody how you would orbit around a building. Now, grant you, if you have flight planning software, you're going to use a point of interest, and it's just going to orbit around that. In this case, it's kind of odd shape. We want to come around this whole campus area. So I rotate, and this is where now you can teach somebody how to do different levels of obliques. So you come down, and maybe I want to do a 60-degree angle here. I'm just guessing at the angle, of course, but I'm imagining that I'm flying my drone and I'm looking at my screen, and this is the view that I see, and I say click. I press the button on my camera on my drone. It takes the picture. I then pan to the right, and then I rotate. And that's how I fly my drone. I tap the stick to the side. It moves over a couple meters, probably 2 meters. And then I just rotate so that the point of interest is back in the center. If I'm doing a campus like this, the center may be moving, so if it's rectangle shape, I kind of picture a center line going down the backbone of this campus, and I follow that perpendicular to it in an oval shape.
Let me quickly mention, Kurt, because we have someone, Kristen, asking, data not being allowed to use. I just want to mention, you may use Google Earth content for non-commercial or personal use, such as news, blogs, educational, recreational, uninstructional use, like this case. But please, always with proper attribution, and check check this with your local whatever. So this is only for instructional case. So
yes.
Non-commercial use. Yeah.
Yes, this saves me from having to take your drone and crash it because you don't know how to fly it.
Yeah.
It's just for a concept of really explaining overlap. And the reason why I came up, I've explained overlap to people, and then I get their photos back and I click from one photo to the next, and I'm like, I can't tell how it's connected. They're not overlapping. And then I start bringing it together, and then I have to go back to the user and say, look, they're not connecting. There's too much gap in here, not enough overlap, and those kind of things. So this is a great way to train somebody for flying a drone of how to do overlap that way. And when it comes with phones, I have other techniques that I use video to teach people how to use overlapping there, and that'll be another topic that we talk about.
We will cover that in another topic.
No, that's a very good point. If you're looking at the Google Earth imagery, it is located there in the lower right corner. Their branding, you need to keep that on there. And this is something I've worked at many engineering firms. Everybody uses Google Earth to look at things beforehand. We also have USGS, which is a lot of free data out there, usgs.gov. There you can get ortho photos, contour maps, all kinds of stuff. And they also have their marking that, the accuracy and things like that. So we could definitely say.
Yes, like almost every country will have like a platform where you can get all the photos and this kind of data relatively easily. So I think this is just demonstrating how that process will work. Kurt, if you don't mind me, we have a question about connecting the native photos, and connecting the facade of the building on Contest Capture. I'm not sure you're going to cover that, but I'm just throwing.
No, okay. We'll talk about that. So in my perfect world, I can fly my drone very low. So I'll do my grid, I'll do high obliques, mid-level obliques, and then low obliques. You could carry the drone around in your hand if you wanted to get closer and use the same camera. I have a similar camera that a handheld camera that I use that I walk around ground level. If you can fly low enough, our software will merge it all together rather quickly and easily. We see this model that I have up here. This one's 91 photos because I redid it. But this process here, let's see. This process took 3 minutes to run the AT on it with 91 photos. Creating my mesh there took 5 minutes. So in a matter of a couple minutes, I have something. And then we look at the results, and this is where it's not like, even if I go in Google Earth at the same spot, it looks much better than here. I only took a couple photos. This is just for training purposes of seeing where my cameras are. And this is where I could look at a user and say, okay, I see your grid up above, and I can see your orbit around. Now, we can also see like the orbit kind of changed elevation here, which sometimes we do a helix where we rotate around and circle into it. So then you can even come in further if you're trying to get things to a semi-scale and really just want to look at, you can use this for practicing with control points. So you can go into Google Earth and you can put place pins. So let's say that I have a location here.
So we're going to survey some control points, are we?
Yeah. Once again, this is not accuracy, and I wouldn't be building anything off this. But if you want somebody to learn how to use a control point and without having to go buy control equipment, this is another way to kind of do it. So I create a pin, and I move this to the crosshair location. And what we see here is I have something that comes up here. It's a place mark. So I would call this like roof vent or something. So I can give it a name. We also see that it has its easting and northing, and we see that it says zone 11S. Now that's UTM zone. I want to be clear though, when we see S, normally you would think that that's south. Bear with me one moment. So if you look at this document, and I realize there's a delay, that UTM 11S is not south. This is, the UTM grid is broken into squares. So here they have between S's between 32 north and 40. So that's California over here, which is the 11S. So it's not south. It's UTM zone 11, WGS 84. I give it a name here. And here's where I would take this measurement and I would go into our context capture. And under survey is where we would add that survey point. So I would bring it in. I actually added it to some here. So we can see here that I brought in my point on this arrow, and it's a control point using WGS 84 UTM zone 11. Oh, that's wrong one, sorry. So when I first did this, I picked 11 south, and I was wondering, actually, I didn't realize at first that the 11S is not south, and it can't be if it's California, but that's why I had to learn from that grid of what the S stood for. But we see here when I pick on it, we're in UTM 11 North, and here's our location. Now that you bring in your control points, once again, this is something that we use Google Earth. So I have these control points in here. We see, if I pick on the images, we see I put some here at the soccer field corner. What I did was, if we look at it in 3D, where I laid out my control points, I looked at the site and I put 3 of them around, spaced out. I then went back and did some orbits around each area, so I had better photography. Because the very high stuff, you weren't able to see these arrows and things like that.
Yeah.
So once I bring them in here, I want to check and make sure that they're in the right place. So that's where we rely on Google Earth again to export. And here I change this to a KML file, which is the Google Earth language. Keyhole model is what it came from.
Kurt, let me mention this. Carl, he's an Irish drone service provider, and he has a comment saying, "Oh no, please don't show how to do control from Google Earth. We have enough issues with photographers trying to be surveyors."
So true, so true.
So true. Well, hopefully, Carl, this is more of an instructional video that you can share maybe with a junior in your company, or someone that you need to train to how to survey control points, and you don't have control points available. So,
so this is where, when they have really good control points, they should be doing this also.
Exactly.
So what I do is, when I bring in my control points, I export my KML out to bring it into Google Earth, and we see here that it's located here in Google Earth, and I'm able to see my control points. Now these are floating above the ground. They're not pinned in, but you'll see if I go perpendicular straight above it, the pin does line up straight over top.
I have another question,
yes.
Kurt, if you don't mind. Christopher is asking, do you set ground control points as a standard practice? Do you want to talk a little bit about this?
Yes, if you want accuracy, you're going to need ground control points, or RTK or PPK drone. Basically, you got to lock it in to survey accuracy. Just like back in the 90s, we were doing photogrammetry from an airplane, a Cessna airplane flying 2,000 feet. We put our control points around, ran AT, the same process we're doing here. This is still photogrammetry. It's just a lot of it's automated for you. Doing millions of points.
I guess it also comes down to the final application. Like, if you don't need that survey grade accuracy, because I don't know, it's a mapping, or you're working with whatever. So then I think it comes down to what is that you need for your final deliverables. But yeah, I think it's a standard practice when you're looking for survey grade. You do need the control points.
Yep. So in this case, I just wanted to be in the real world. With my drone having, it's not RTK,
Hmm.
it'll get me close. So everything's relatively to a good scale, and it works for what I'm doing. I'm doing it mostly for hobby purposes, but I work with people that do it professionally, and I, control is needed. You need to lock things in. You can't depend on just GPS from your phone or from a drone like I have here.
Hmm.
But yeah, it is the accuracy that you're looking to achieve. So when we talk about accuracy, um, even in this made up model, this is not a real thing for us, but we can check our accuracy. So number one, I want to check connection. So if I'm doing multiple orbits, I have my nadir, a high orbit and a lower orbit. I want to make sure all those photos are connecting left, right, and up and down. That means I have enough side to side. You don't want to move more than 15-degree angle, and same up and down. You don't want to move too much, and you don't want to change your angle too much. So what we're seeing here is that connection where I can see these multiple levels. You see the green dots in there, and everything's connected up above and below. What you don't want to see is a layer of blue above and then a big gap, and then your next flight line showing another layer of blue.
Hmm.
We also want to look at the coverage, how much area. This is the campus that we're covering. So we wanted to make sure that we are covering the entire campus area. And you can see with my control there, I laid it out at the best 3 spots that I could do for this site for what I was looking to achieve. Now, we also want to look at photo position uncertainty. So this is showing you which photos had to move or from their original location. And you can see something like this. I was kind of floating up here in the back, and then I moved forward. It's probably not the best photo to take, didn't have the best overlap there. But these are all things you would look at with your real photography, and then resolution. So you want to see the key areas of resolution. Like I said, I did orbits around these target areas, which is why the
Mm.
resolution's higher. And you'll also notice in the back here that it's very green there, which means we have high resolution. And the reason that happened is just like you're flying a drone, if I'm set at 200 feet above ground, as that ground's elevating, unless I'm using flight planning software that's interpreting or looking at your terrain and adjusting accordingly, like I use Drone Harmony, that does that. So you put in your DTM and your flight path would actually transition up the hill with you to keep that 200 feet. But in this case of Google Earth, I just kind of moved at the same level. So as the hill went up, as we had an elevation change, and we can look at our elevation in our height map here, as the elevation changed, you see I'm actually closer to those photos. So I'm not at, say, 200 feet to throw out a number. I'm
Hmm.
actually lower. And then we can also see things like the cell tower here. And just through the AT process, I could take advantage of our photo navigation,
Hmm.
which allows me just to quickly pick on a part of the tower here. And we see here, I can see the tower. Pick on different parts, and it zooms into the tower right off just running AT. So in a matter of a minute, I can start
Hmm.
looking at structures that are out there.
Can I ask you, Curtis, is these quality metrics, are these new from the latest update of Contest Capture?
No, they're actually, I believe they came out in, I'm going to say 15. Don't quote me on that.
Okay.
They've been out there a couple releases,
Mm.
but I will tell you that there's some really cool things in there that people should pay attention to our webinars, because there's so many things inside of it that you need to keep up with.
Mm.
I know your company offers keys for your users,
We
so
do,
that
yeah.
hand-holding, people like myself will sit there and do web meetings with you and your company to get your project going. Take advantage of it. I'm telling you, it's don't spin your wheels. Do
Yeah,
as much as you can. When you hit a point and you need help, ask for the
yeah.
help. Use
That's, I
that
think
key
that's
that you
the,
have,
yeah.
and
I think that's the key of the keys.
yes,
Is like I think everything is changing so quickly, and even our own updates. Like there's so much to learn. We can't expect our customers to be up to date with all the technology from data acquisition to data processing. So I think the keys are just kind of like virtual tokens, so they can be exchanged for support and dedicated training. So you can just, as Courage mentioned, you can just have someone like as experienced as himself, or a bit less experience, because your experience is but helping you and supporting you throughout your project. So the virtuosity kind of like bundle comes with those keys.
one thing I wanted to point out before I leave, because I was talking about sliding Google Earth using a quarter of the screen or a third of the screen. When you go oblique, you don't follow that method anymore. So if you're
Mhm.
going to an oblique orbit, you're just going to move around something. But you can also do oblique grids to get used to that. So in that case, if I'm going at an angle like this, I don't want to go a quarter of the screen. I may only move an inch. Just an inch on my screen is moving like 50, 60 feet on the ground because I'm
Mhm.
in an oblique view. So um, what I told about the quarter overlap, that's for nadir. And if you're oblique, just kind of, I go by eye. I just pull
Mhm.
maybe an inch down on the screen, take my next snapshot. But
Okay.
this way you can see in context capture exactly how your grid is going, looking
Yeah.
at the photos.
Mhm.
But I want to thank everybody for joining us today, and I look forward. I have so many cool things that I want to show,
It,
definitely out of the box and under the
it's
water even.
it's been 35 minutes. I wanna get going. But
Well,
no,
everybody can. You can do these things. There's so much out there to do and start preliminary.
yeah. So I think for next time there was great interest. I will note down all the questions and I will follow up with those that we haven't had the time to address here. I think for the next one we will be showing an underwater project. Is that it, Kurt?
Yes, I have a couple that I've been working on. Some I can't show, and I feel bad because they're really, really awesome. But some of the fun ones I could still show, and I'll share that with you.
Okay, that'll be great. So then see you all in 3-4 weeks. I'll just be posting a new event for that our next event. And thank you so much everyone for joining. Thank you so much,
Thanks,
Kurt.
everybody.
And stay safe and thanks for your time. Bye.
Take care, everybody.
Bye. Bye. Bye.
Bye.